Anya's hand, which had been holding the wine glass, froze. Was she really in need of money? Of course. I am very short of money. For the past 4 years, I have constantly been short of money, she thought to herself. Timothy saw Anya's reaction and understood in his heart. He thought for a moment, then reached out to push the wine glass in Anya's hand away. He said calmly, 4 years ago, when I was ready to sign the divorce agreement with you, I had already prepared the compensation for you. You didn't take it way back then, but it's still available now. If you're willing, I'm happy to give you all the money and add interest. If he did that, would the strange feeling he had toward her be any less? Thinking of this, Timothy let out a sigh of relief in his heart. Maybe he could let go of the guilt he had carried for so long. Due to the current challenges in her life, when Timothy said those words, she almost subconsciously said, I accept. That sum of money would not have been a small amount in anyone's estimation. If Anya took the money that Timothy was offering, she would definitely be able to solve the urgent matter at hand. Moreover, it would allow her and Anton to live comfortably for the rest of their lives. She wouldn't have to work so hard and could go against her own moral standards to stay here with Derek. She was tired of feeling like she had to put on a show. However, Anya clenched her teeth in an effort to force herself not to say something she would regret. If she accepted Timothy's divorce compensation right now, then what would have been the point of her struggle for the past 4 years? If Timothy still had a trace of humanity, he would definitely feel guilty for what he had done. In that moment, she decided she would never let the guilt in Timothy's heart go away. It would be best if it kept lingering in his heart and on his mind, making him unable to sleep at night. Her general personality was very amiable, allowing her to be able to submit humbly to anyone necessary. But in front of Timothy, she absolutely refused. Timothy saw that Anya did not speak, so he made the decision for her. How about this? You give me your account number. I will get my assistant to send you the money as soon as possible. Mr. Godot, when will you understand? I will never choose to take your money. Anya resumed her swirling of the wine glass in her hand. In the dim light, that face of his became more and more attractive. She was being drawn in, but she managed to catch herself and responded, That money? You should keep it to take care of your current wife. I heard she has been very sick and infertile for many years. Maybe it is karma. Anya, don't go too far. Timothy suddenly grabbed Anya's wrist. His movements were so impactful that the wine in the glass spilled everywhere. It was me who let you down that year. It has nothing to do with Melissa. Oh, it has nothing to do with her? Anya laughed, but the expression on her face became colder and colder. She leaned close to Timothy's ears and said, There is clearly someone else in your heart, but you had married me. She clearly knew that you were married, but she was willing to be a mistress. Timothy, you and that woman are not good people. Anya. Timothy clenched his fist even tighter around her wrist. Anya quickly began to worry that her wrist might have been injured. What? I am just speaking the truth. Anya raised the corner of her mouth and smiled bitterly. Although she no longer liked Timothy, when she saw the person she had loved so much back then changed because of that cheap woman, she almost wanted to kill her. I won't allow you to say that about her. Timothy looked at Anya and spoke warningly, enunciating each word carefully. Ha! Anya could not help but laugh coldly. She used a voice only Timothy could hear and sarcastically asked, What a passionate man! But what did I do wrong again? Why did you use me and then abandon me? Before Anya could finish speaking, Timothy's hand that had been holding Anya's wrist so firmly instantly lost all of its strength. His harsh eyes flashed, but were no longer as sharp as before. Timothy questioned himself. Ever since he had started doing business, he had done many ruthless things. But there had been very few things that could make him feel guilty. Anya, on the other hand, was one of those few things that he found to be an exception, and the very thought of her could make him feel uneasy. Perhaps it was because Anya had always threatened him with such transparency that his memory could not be erased. Or perhaps it was because of Anya's current situation that gave him a new perspective. No matter what, I will get my secretary to call you. Timothy no longer looked into Anya's eyes and just said it on his own accord. I have already said it, but I will repeat myself. I don't want that money. Anya did not back down. She raised the glass of wine that had half spilled and handed it to Timothy again. Today, we are just business partners. I will propose a toast. You can drink to that. It will be simple. What if I don't drink it? Timothy remarked, staring into Anya's enchanting eyes. He did not like her aggressive look. 4 years ago, she was just an innocent and naive little girl who could easily be controlled. 4 years later, she had so much confidence and could actually walk around with a glass of wine among a pile of men. Anya, 4 years. I haven't seen you. You have become very capable, and now you dare to order me to do something. Timothy's eyes were lustful. He wanted Anya to back down. It would be best if she took the money that he gave her and obediently did not appear in front of him ever again. However, she looked at Timothy fearlessly. 4 years ago, she had seen enough of his cold expression. At that time, he could silence her with a single glance. But now it was different. She would never be afraid of Timothy again. She wanted to see what the consequences would be like if she took the tiger by the tail. Since Mr. Godot doesn't want to drink it himself, I can only... Anya did not finish her words. She immediately poured the wine in the glass into her mouth and quickly leaned into Timothy's neck. She kissed his firm lips. Anya's beautiful eyes were looking right into his. Her eyelashes were slender and moved slightly. Her eyes were full of cunning after her scheme had succeeded. Some wine mixed with Anya's unique fragrance all attacked Timothy's senses. He widened his eyes and wanted to scold her harshly, but the wine in his mouth flowed down his throat. Timothy suddenly pushed Anya away and looked at her in disbelief. How did this woman he had known so well become this woman that stood before him? Look, Mr. Godot, didn't you drink that wine just now? Anya's hand was still on Timothy's neck. She said proudly, 4 years ago, every time you came home, there had always been the smell of another woman on you. Now, unless you change into a new set of clothes before you go home, your wife will understand exactly how I felt all those times. Anya meeting Timothy today had been a coincidence. The way she treated him just now was also a spur-of-the-moment decision. She had not planned to take revenge on Timothy's current wife. However, when she thought about how Timothy's current wife would smell another woman's scent on Timothy, and how her expression would be one of such hurt, Anya felt a burst of happiness in her heart. Sometimes it was really a delightful thing to show those who had hurt her exactly what it felt like, no matter how much time had passed. Anya, you did this on purpose. Timothy reached out and grabbed her chin between his thumb and forefinger. When he realized what was happening, he began to look a little angry. Since Mr. Godot didn't want to drink the wine, I had to think of other ways. Although her jaw had begun to hurt because of his strong grasp, she clenched her teeth and refused to show it. She still had an expression that seemed to be saying, "You can't hurt me," on her face. You! Timothy felt that the number of times he had been left speechless today was more than that of his entire life combined. The biggest shock was that the person who had left him speechless was Anya, someone he thought he had left in the past. Anya saw Timothy's deflated appearance and immediately felt rejuvenated. However, Timothy's grip on her chin was getting stronger and stronger, and she was about at the brink of what she could physically take. However, Anya did not beg for mercy. She stretched out her index finger and started drawing circles on Timothy's chest. She pouted and said, "Mr. Godot, you have been grasping my chin for quite some time. Do you want to keep doing it?" The veins on Timothy's forehead began to visibly pulsate. Then he let go of her. The woman was stubborn to the extreme. "Since this glass of wine has already been drunk, my mission has been completed." Anya looked at Timothy calmly, then stood up and took the glass of wine. She turned around and returned to Derek's side. Derek, who was sitting not far away, had been observing Anya and Timothy's movements. Although he could not hear the conversation between them, it seemed that Timothy really liked Anya. Otherwise, how could she feed him the wine with her face so close to his? It was the right decision to let her come with him this time, Derek thought happily. At that moment, Anya had returned to Derek's side. She waved her empty glass in front of Derek with a smile on his face. "Mr. Weston, I have fulfilled your request. As for what you promised me—" "Miss Radcliffe, you did well." Derek only praised her but did not respond to her implied statement. He enjoyed being clever. How could he agree to such a big project so easily? However, Anya being able to take Timothy down a notch was indeed somewhat out of Derek's expectations. There were countless women who had taken the initiative to attach themselves to Timothy, although her appearance and figure were above average. However, Timothy Godot was famous for being a good man. He was loyal to his wife. There must be some women who were better off than Anya who had made the attempt but not succeeded. Then why did he allow her to behave so intimately? He even drank the wine with which she plied him. It simply must be the first time in 100 years he had been led astray. Looking at Timothy's reaction after the incident, he had not pushed Anya away or shown any intense disgust. Instead, he only felt embarrassment. Thinking of this, Derek's gaze became a bit more probing. "Miss Radcliffe, you did well. Timothy Godot, such a big figure, was willing to buy your time." "Mr. Weston, I'm glad you are willing to give me the chance to earn some big figures." Anya took the initiative to pour a glass of wine and said to Derek, "Let's drink to a toast." Anya drank the wine in her hand in one gulp and then looked at Derek with a smile. Derek looked at Anya with satisfaction and also drank the wine in his hand. Then he continued the topic at the forefront of his mind. "Miss Radcliffe, you just chatted with Mr. Godot for quite a bit of time. What did he say?" "About that." Anya smiled slightly. He found her intoxicating. Derek looked at her and felt as if he had become drunk all over again. "Do you really want to know?" "Of course I want to know." Derek's curiosity had been piqued about what Anya and Timothy had been talking about. As far as he knew, no woman could chat with Timothy for so long, much less make such intimate gestures. Then about the cooperation between Sunderby Styles and Mr. Weston. Anya looked at Derek and wanted to say something but stopped herself. Hearing what she said, he slightly raised his eyebrows. "What? She wants to use my curiosity to get an agreement for a corporation between me and Sunderby Styles so easily? Isn't that a little too easy?" Derek pursed his lips and looked at her again. He had not received any favors from Anya, so how could he agree so easily? "Since Miss Radcliffe doesn't want to say it, I won't force her." Derek reached out and poured another glass of wine. He leaned against the sofa and said slowly. Derek's words made Anya's face stiffen. He was indeed a sly old fox. Anya also knew that it was impossible to get the ability to cooperate with him so easily, but she still could not help but spit at him in her heart. Anya quickly laughed. She did not want to make the atmosphere too tense, so she took the initiative to approach Derek and said to him, "Actually, this is what I just said to Mr. Godot." "Then quickly tell me." Derek curiously looked over. Anya raised her red lips and paused by Derek's ear for a moment before she exhaled and said, "It's a secret." When Derek heard her say this, he was first stunned, then he laughed loudly. This woman, although she did not say anything in the end, made it awfully hard to be angry with her. For her to be able to control the atmosphere so skillfully, he found it was very pleasurable. She was a true temptress. Miss Radcliffe, I find you deeply compelling. Derek looked at Anya in a different way. Other than her beautiful face and perfect figure, her other charming qualities added to her intrigue. I have to work to keep up with you, Mr. Weston. Anya complimented him without batting an eyelash. Anya and Derek chatted happily, clinked glasses, and even whispered in each other's ears. Timothy observed their interaction from a distance. He unconsciously clenched his fists. When had this woman become like this? Come, have another drink, Timothy heard him say to Anya. He saw her smiling. She reached out to take the glass from him and finished it in a single gulp. Timothy did not even know how many glasses this was for her. He remembered how when he was with Anya in the past, she had not known how to drink. Because he wanted to talk business, he had to drink more at the table when they were with colleagues. Every time Timothy returned home drunk, Anya would have a bowl of soup to help him sober up and a hot towel waiting for him. Once, Timothy recalled that he had even seen Anya secretly pinching her nose and drinking a cup of wine. She choked and coughed for a long time. Timothy was curious and asked her why she had done it. At the time, Anya was still childish and took the initiative to hug him. She smiled and answered, because she wanted to have a taste of how good the wine was. Why did men always like to drink so much? It made her favorite man feel so uncomfortable after drinking. She found it perplexing and made her heart ache so much for him. Timothy remembered that he had impatiently pushed her away. He hated her stupidity and daftness. He hated the time when she had given up without any reservation. What Anya had done at that time only made the burden in Timothy's heart heavier. The past was still vivid in his mind. The innocent Anya, who had seemingly been so self-centered before, had disappeared and was replaced by a stubborn, ambitious Anya who knew how to flirt and hook up with men. In the few minutes that Timothy spent recalling the past, Anya downed a few more glasses of wine. Although she had trained her tolerance a little in the last 4 years, she could not resist Mr. Weston's offer. Now, her head started to feel dizzy, and she could not sit up straight anymore. Come, have another drink. Then your chances of getting me and Sunderby Styles to agree to collaboration will greatly increase. Derek looked into Anya's dazed eyes, and his face transformed. He poured another glass of wine for her. Then, Mr. Weston, you must keep your promise. Anya's mind was already somewhat muddled, but she had heard his words clearly. Anya blinked and found that there were 3 Derek Westons and 3 glasses of wine in front of her. When the 2 wine glasses in front of her were empty, she took the wine glass that he handed her. She shook her head and smiled at Derek, then raised her head and drank the wine quickly. Enough! A voice had been angrily holding back roared through the noisy private room. Timothy's face was irate. He stood up and took a few steps until he was standing in front of Anya. Then he grabbed her wrist, took the glass from Anya's hand, and placed it gruffly on the table. With a bang, the glass shattered due to the abrupt force. The wine spilled all over the floor. Everyone in the room was shocked. They looked at Timothy, who was someone rarely to be seen angry, and they had never seen before because of a woman. Mr. Godot! Derek was also in shock by his attitude. He looked at the drunk Anya and then looked at Timothy. Could it be that he had taken a fancy to her and wanted to save the damsel in distress? However, this was the first time Anya and Timothy Godot had ever met. She had broken the unspoken rules and made a move on Timothy. It was already very surprising that she could make the famously well-behaved Mr. Godot stand up for her. Don't delay my business. Anya glared at Timothy fiercely, then looked at Derek and said with a smile, Mr. Weston, let's not be bothered with him. You must do what you promised me just now. This cup of wine, I'll drink it as a toast." As Anya said that, she casually picked up another glass of wine on the table and began to down it. The veins on Timothy's fists bulged. This time, he did not stop Anya. He just stood by and coldly watched Anya pour all the wine into her mouth. No one would be so ungrateful, and no one would dare to disobey me. Anya, what are you doing? This time, everyone could see that Timothy was livid. Derek stood up, trembling with fear. He looked at Timothy with a smile and said, "Mr. Godot, you saw it too. I did not force Miss Radcliffe to drink. She picked it up and drank it by herself." Derek's head was covered in sweat now. He was afraid that if Timothy got angry, his small company would not be able to protect itself. To think that he had praised Anya just now, all that was left in his heart was anger. It was not easy for him to have a chance to cooperate with the Godot group. Today, Mr. Godot had come to be entertained with him because of Leslie Lynch and his father. He called Anya because he wanted this meeting to be more lively. He also wanted to use Anya in an attempt to please Timothy. However, Derek would never have thought that Anya would dare to go against him. Derek felt that the way Timothy looked at him now was as if he desired to kill him. After staring at Derek for several seconds, Timothy grabbed Anya, who was lying on the sofa, and lifted her up. He looked at Anya, who was drunk. He was angry and anxious. He did not know why he had to care about such idle things. Anya had gotten drunk because of an old man like Derek Weston. After getting her drunk, where would he take her and what did he plan to do? It is not something he should care about. Why was he having such a strong reaction? However, his actions were completely opposite to his thoughts. Although his cold eyes fiercely glared at Anya, the hand that grabbed her would not let go. "Anya, where is your home? I will take you there." Timothy looked at Anya, who was lying limply in his arms. "I haven't finished talking about work yet. Not going home." Anya waved her hand randomly, trying to get rid of him. Timothy's handsome eyebrows furrowed even more. He turned his head and looked at Derek, who was staring blankly at him. He ignored the surprised look on his face and said, "Do you know where Anya's home is?" "This," Derek whispered. He said haltingly, "This is only the second time Miss Radcliffe and I have met, so I don't know where her home is." She drank so heavily that it was only the second time they met? Timothy's eagle eyes immediately shot daggers at him. With such a distasteful character, working with him would be a greater risk. It would be better to discuss and reevaluate that with Leslie later. It was best not to let Derek get involved in the matter of entering the clothing industry. After looking at Derek expressionlessly for more than 10 seconds, Timothy finally moved his eyes away from him. He turned his head to look at Anya, who was still unconscious, and dragged her out of the room without showing any mercy. While he hauled her out of the room, Derek followed behind them. "If you have something to say, say it," Timothy hissed, not even looking at Derek. He just turned his back on him. "I think I heard about this Miss Radcliffe last time. She seems to be married, so..." Derek thought about it again and again. In the end, he still chased after her and reminded Timothy about this matter. If Timothy took Anya home and met her husband, wouldn't it be very awkward? Or perhaps Mr. Godot wanted to take drunk Anya somewhere to do indescribable things to her. But in the end, Anya's husband would find out. Wouldn't that be embarrassing? In order not to put him in an uncomfortable situation, Derek ultimately told him about Anya. "Anya, are you married?" Timothy looked around and looked at Derek. Obviously, he was shocked by the news. "Yes, she told me personally at Mr. Lynch's birthday banquet last time we spoke." Derek nodded. The last time he had seen her at Leslie's birthday banquet, he had wanted to treat Anya to a meal. Anya had used the excuse that she needed to visit her son to turn him down. Yes. After a second of surprise, Timothy quickly understood. Anya had been divorced from him for 4 years. It was normal to get remarried after being with someone else. But thinking of this, Timothy turned his head to look at Anya, who reeked of alcohol and was wearing seductive clothing. He scoffed at her husband. Anya, what kind of man did you marry that made you work so hard to make a living? You didn't stay home at night, and you wore such clothes to go out and drink with other men? He thought. Yes, I heard Miss Radcliffe say last time we spoke that she had a son. Derek saw the shocked expression on Timothy's face and knew that he had heard him. He hurriedly continued to reveal more information about her.